Now the topic before us is beyond the visible, analyzing balance of invisible trade in three scenarios. Here we are going to discuss balance of invisible trade. Suppose this is our country and this is the rest of world. We may be having certain goods which are in abundance, and so we export goods to the rest of the world. At the same time, we may be having shortage of certain goods, so we import goods, certain goods from the rest of the world. At the same time, we also export or provide services to the rest of the world, and the services such as banking, insurance, shipping, transport, export of services, providing of services to the rest of the world. In certain areas, we may be requiring the services from the rest of the world. So there is import of certain services. Import of services. So as a whole, we as a nation do export and import of goods and services. When here we are to talk about balance of invisible trade, what is the meaning of I? I means invisible. Invisible trade means trade which is cannot be seen. Invisible items means those items which cannot be seen, touched or measured. So here when we are to discuss balance of invisible trade, we will be discussing only about export and import of services. So in case of BOIT, we will be taking into account export and import of services. So balance of invisible trade is equal to or difference between the value of export of services minus import of services, or value of export of invisible items and import of invisible items. So it is the difference between a country's invisible exports and invisible imports. Balance of invisible trade is also known as balance of trade on services. It is a key component of balance of payment. Discussed that balance of payment has three components: current account, capital account and financial account, and balance of invisible trade comes under the head current account. Invisible exports means services sold or provided to rest of the world or other countries. On the other hand, invisible imports means services taken or purchased from rest of the world or other countries. Examples of invisible trade are services such as banking, insurance, tourism, transportation, other professional services such as consulting, engineering. So balance of invisible trade: invisible exports minus invisible imports. Here we will be taking into account value of invisible exports and value of invisible imports. So the balance of invisible trade may be surplus, deficit or balanced. Surplus balance of invisible trade occurs when export of invisible trade is more than import of invisible trade. Deficit balance of invisible trade occurs when export of invisible trade is less than import of invisible trade. Now the balanced BOIT occurs when export of services, value of export of services or ex value of export of invisible items is equal to import of services. When we are talking about balanced BOIT, here we will be taking into account that exports are roughly equal to import. We will be not taking into account 1:1 ratio. No. If the exports are say 6 billion, then 5.99 billion will be taken as balanced BOIT. Both the sides should be roughly equal to each other. The balance of invisible trade has a significant impact on the country's economy. If the country's exports are more than the imports, that is, economy is having surplus balance of invisible trade, then it means that it is getting more foreign exchange. That is, exports are more, imports are less. So it is, there is net flow of foreign exchange. So it may utilize this excess money which is it is getting due to high exports for improving its economy, or it may use it to reduce its debt. On the other hand, if a country is having deficit balance of invisible trade, that is, imports are more in comparison to exports, so it will have to pay foreign exchange to the rest of the world for the imports. It means that suppose exports are 100, whereas imports are to the tune of 150. So what is difference? Minus 50. This is deficit balance of invisible trade. So it will have to pay 50 to the rest of the world. So to pay 50 to the rest of the world, either the country will have to borrow, or it will have to sell its assets or use some other means. I hope you have understood all the three scenarios of balance of invisible trade, and that too in a very simple language. Thanks for watching. If you like our course, please spare some time to give a star rating to our course.